Yeah, but like I said, it was subversive, and so was the music that I was listening to. You know, it was music my parents didn't want me to hear.
Live from the Willie Nelson and Friends Museum Showcase in Nashville, Tennessee, it's Music is Funny. Musicians talking to comedians about music and comedy. With your hosts, Raelyn Nelson and Jonathan Bright.
I'm still smoking, I'm so high, I keep toking, I'm drunk, but I'm still drinking too.
Welcome back to Music is Funny. I'm Raelyn Nelson.
And I'm Jonathan Bright from the Raelyn Nelson Band, back with another fantastic and unnecessary intro. And a brand new episode.
Dun, 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 dun.
Don Jamieson.
Yeah. Hey, Don.
Hey, what's up, Raelyn?
It's really cold in here in the museum right now. I just turned the heat on, so that's why we're all bundled.
You're all bundled up there, and I'm in Jersey, and it's cold up here, and I got no sleeves.
There you go.
How do you handle Jersey with no sleeves?
Alcohol?
That's right. And gas heat.
So it works the same in the north as it does in the south.
I want to...
Yeah.
This is JB, my co-host and guitar player.
Hey, man. Nice to meet you.
So
Good to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you. And thanks for being here. And I wanted to ask you, first, what we usually do is say, what's the first music you remember loving as a kid?
Okay. Oh, we're recording. We're on.
Yeah, we're on.
Oh,
And we're
boy,
keeping that earlier stuff, too.
Oh, we're keeping that stuff stays.
We'll put it out as the
What's
second podcast.
the first music that I remember that I loved? Oh, boy. Well, I think the first concert I ever went to was actually the Monkees.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah?
What
Yeah.
age? What age were you?
I was maybe like 8 years old, 9 years old.
That's perfect.
Wow.
And then I made a hard left into Kiss, and I never turned back.
I went the same route. I didn't see the Monkees live, but once I found Kiss, I forgot everything that happened before. Especially
Exactly.
at that, you see the fire and the explosions that just reeled me in.
Yeah, it's like you're looking at the cover of Destroyer, and you're like, they're comic book characters, they're superheroes, and they're rock stars. There could be nothing better than this in the universe.
Yeah, especially as a young dude, because we're roughly the same age. And I remember, and it's when you get Alive 2, that was the one when you open the gatefold and it's just fire everywhere. I'm like, I want to do that.
Exactly. That, and you never think you could like another band after Kiss. And it did take a while. It took a good couple of years. It took till I was about 13 to start getting into other stuff. But Kiss was, I always say, they were the gateway drug.
Yeah, I tell Raelyn because she was into NSYNC when she was a young girl, and I'm like, well, Kiss was my boy band. I was the same age. They got me, and they just sucked me right in. They were, they had all the merch, they had everything, and there you go. So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, I loved NSYNC. I was just introduced Viv again to NSYNC, and she was like,
Your daughter?
Remember. Yeah, my daughter. She's 12. Just introduced her to NSYNC.
You should introduce her to the guy on your right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Papa Willie. Yeah, she calls him Santa Claus.
Cool.
So you go from Kiss.
Yeah, where do you go from Kiss?
When I know it's probably
you're a
the same
metalhead,
there.
right?
Yeah,
He's a metalhead.
And we grew up on the same kind of music, but I remember back then in the day how it was almost like joining a gang, your musical taste. It said when you had to go to junior high, whatever concert jersey or whatever you were wearing, you were judged harshly, and you seemed to have like a crew. Was it the same way, I assume, in Jersey?
Yeah, you were. If you liked Kiss in high school, you were the crew that nobody else liked.
Exactly.
Really?
Well, yeah, when you're drawing the Kiss makeup stuff on your book covers and things like that. Anybody remember books? It was, I don't know, I guess looking back now, it could have been seen as kind of lame, but no, we were the Kiss Army, and I loved it. And then I spent a summer up in Yonkers with my aunt and uncle and my cousin who was around my age, and he turned me on to Aerosmith and then Judas Priest, and then it was over after that. Then it was like, okay, all floodgates open. I'm available for all heavy music at this point. And I walked down to the record store on Central Ave in Yonkers and bought Iron Maiden Killers and put that on, and my whole life changed.
So wait, before we get into the metal stuff, both you guys same age. and you're in high school and you're drawing these Kiss stuff on your books and stuff.
Yeah, and like the Trapper Keepers, the folder stuff you would have, you had to, like when I was in school, they would give you book covers so you wouldn't just trash the books. So you put on these kind of covers and then you could decorate, with
Well, here's my
Zeppelin or Kiss
question. The cool kids, what were they listening to? The ones that thought you guys were lame.
In my high school, it was like the Burnouts were the cool kids. Like they were listening to, Neil Young and Leonard Skinner and Allman Brothers and stuff like that. But I was never a stoner, So yeah, I just stayed on the heavy metal path. But those were all the cool kids in my school.
Which it's funny you just mentioned that. The same way with me, like when I was in 7th grade, the 9th graders, all the coolest ones were the Burnouts, which I don't know if that still holds true nowadays.
What's
but
burnout mean? Just
like dope smokers and drinking on the weekends or whatever they can.
And where are they now, JB? Huh? Where are they now?
Yeah, exactly.
Look at us. Look at us.
But
Look where we are.
It is funny though that it was the losers that were the most popular. But they, once they got out about the 11th grade, the shine kind of got off of that, I guess.
Yeah. Plus I had braces, so I wasn't doing too well anyway. So, I just said, I'm sticking with Kiss. I love it. And then, like I said, then once the doors opened, I couldn't get enough, learn about enough new bands.
So did you ever play in any bands as a kid like that when you first coming up?
Yeah, I played in a band in high school called Beautiful Dreamer, and we were a hard rock band, and we actually recorded some songs. But, I just got to the point of where I plateaued on guitar in terms of like any kind of passion for continuing on to get better and stuff. And by this time, I was in the Van Halen and, a million other bands with guitar heroes in them. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave this for the people who do it right. I'm going to jump off here. I still pick up my guitar and play once in a while, but as far as making that maybe a profession, I just said, nah, I'm not into that. And then plus, my band started to play out at like high school parties and stuff. And I realized like, you gotta lug all this equipment. You got to split the money 4 ways. This guy's mom doesn't want him in the band. This guy's girlfriend doesn't want him in the band. This guy got herpes yesterday. He can't play. We got to get a new guy in. And I was just like, screw that. I got to find a job I could just do on my own.
That's a smart move because we're still dealing with all that stuff today.
Yeah.
Who has the herpes?
Today, JB.
Anyway.
No. So when you pick up your guitar to play, what are you playing?
Like the same 12 songs, I knew from back then, Iron Man, Breaking the Law, Dirty Deeds.
Yeah. So I remember we talked to your buddy, Jim Florentine. Where did you stand on The Boss when you were a kid? Because I mentioned to him, as a metal fan, are you even really allowed to like Bruce Springsteen in Jersey? It's the hometown, but like, where did you fall there?
It doesn't matter to me, like if it's a band from Jersey or whatever. So no, The Boss was never, I never bled Springsteen ever. He invited us when we were doing that metal show. His son was a big fan of our TV show, and he invited us to come see Bruce live in concert. And Jim and I went, and we did have fun, but we got to about an hour and a half, and we both looked at each other and we're like, that's enough, right? And they're like, yeah, okay, let's go. We don't need to see the 3.5 hour spectacle.
Yeah, I've never seen Springsteen. Clearly he's very talented and great, genius, all that, but I don't want to watch anybody for 3 hours. No. That's too much. It's too much.
The good thing about Springsteen though is like he doesn't play any hits. So it's like if I want to hear Springsteen, I just put on the radio, and I could hear a million of his hits. At least he just played all like fan favorite songs that we didn't know any of them. So that was actually better that he wasn't playing Born to Run and Born in the USA and all this stuff. So that was actually cooler.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, you can't play. Nobody has 3.5 hours worth of hits. That's for sure.
Well,
he almost, but
yeah. He's got a good hour and a half, probably solid. Yeah, for sure.
But what's funny is we do watch 3.5 hour podcasts.
That's a good point. Not a lot of them though.
Only comedy podcasts. Yeah. It's interesting. You could listen to somebody chat with another comedian for 3.5 hours, but very few people want to listen to the same person play their songs for 3.5 hours.
GNR kind of makes it work, I've seen them a couple times on this last go around, and they do have a knack for like figuring out like so it doesn't seem like so long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I'm good. 90 minutes. I'm good. Let's get out. To play the last two hits at the end and the encore, and let's get out of here.
Yeah, it's tried and true. So you say you didn't do, so you bailed on the band in high school, roughly. You did a lot before you got into comedy. You had other gigs, right? Didn't you do radio and stuff like that? And how did you get into that stuff?
No, I did college radio, where I had a metal show on there, but I started working at MTV. I was, a producer and a writer behind the scenes and stuff. And I was, I always loved comics. Like my first two records were Kiss Destroyer and George Carlin, Occupation Fool. So I always loved those two worlds. They always made sense to me. They always worked together, for me and with me. So when I started working at MTV, I used to go, like, even in college, I used to go to the comedy clubs in New York City and just go and hang out, watch comics. Like I saw, Seinfeld in the mid 80s and stuff like that. So, when I got to MTV, they knew what a comedy fan I was, and they started letting me book the stand-up comedy show. And, the more I did it and the more I started going to different clubs and seeing other comics and really developing, all these favorites, I started thinking about it, myself, like, would I dare, do this? So
yeah.
How did you get that gig?
At MTV?
Yeah.
I had hair down to my nipples, and there was really no other corporate job I could get with hair like that. So
This was like early 90s, late 80s.
Yeah, late 80s. So yeah, I was like, I had met a woman from MTV at a radio convention, and she wasn't bummed out about my hair. So I went and interned for her, and then it turned into a job.
Why did you cut your hair?
When?
Well, it's not that long anymore.
Well, no, I mean, look, I'm happy to still have hair at my age. So, it's a different style. Now I just go and say, I want the 2 weeks before a mullet cut.
Yeah.
And they know how to do that here in Jersey.
Yeah.
So
it looks great. You have great hair.
Yeah. What was it like working at MTV back in those? They were still playing videos. They were still doing all that kind of stuff. It had to be a completely different gig than it would be now. Like, did you see a lot of musicians coming in, or was it just you were apart from all of that stuff doing your thing? Were you around any of the guys coming in before that metal show?
Well, the one thing a little piece of trivia, obviously long before we did that metal show, was I actually worked on Headbanger's Ball. Oh, okay. Which sort of the precursor, to what we did with, a lot of years in between, unfortunately. But yeah, I was, again, I'm the guy with the long hair walking around the hallways, but I'm the comedy guy, but also everyone knows I'm the metalhead. And they were like, hey, and before Ricky came in, it was Adam Curry, he had the feathered back hair and he put on the leather jacket. Now he's the host of Headbanger's Ball, or downtown Julie Brown would do it. But neither of them were metalheads. So when they hired Ricky, they were like, okay, this guy's from LA. We got to bring him in every couple of weeks to film, and we need someone to like take care of him and all that stuff. So they asked me by default. And Ricky and I have been friends since like 1990 and are still friends. And that was great. Once I started working on that show, I said, okay, right, I'm in the right place now.
Yeah. So you got all the long-haired gigs inside of MTV when they needed the long-haired guy. You got
it. And I was still booking the comedy. So I was, again, this has followed me my whole career.
So how do you go from booking comedy to going, maybe?
Well, and yeah, you said that George Carlin was the first comedian you remember loving. Yeah. And
oh God, yeah. I mean, because when you're 13 or whatever, 12, you couldn't, your parents weren't going to let you listen to the 7 words you can't say on television. So, I had to get my friend Steve Stevenson, whose parents didn't care what he listened to. He used to make me cassette tapes, and I would like listen to him late at night when my parents went to sleep with the earphone in.
Yeah.
And so, and Cheech and Chong, I listened to a lot back then. And, I didn't get a lot of the humor, but I knew it was subversive. And the fact that I couldn't listen to it in front of my parents, I knew I was onto something.
Yeah, I had the same experience with early Steve Martin records. I got about 25% of the jokes, but I loved listening to it over. And I could recognize the spectacle and the certain things. I could hear my parents giggling in the other room from time to time, but still loved it. It is weird that you get into a comedian like that and really you're only vaguely aware of what they're going for at that age.
Yeah, but it's like cartoons. It's like, when you're young, you didn't get all the adult references in the cartoons, but they were still funny, And Steve Martin was such a physical cat too. If you ever saw video of him, he had all those crazy gyrations and moves, so you could laugh at that stuff. But yeah, but like I said, it was subversive, and so was the music that I was listening to. It was music my parents didn't want me to hear.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of the subversive comics that we've talked to know that they like metal too. It's like almost like their musical tastes go along with their comedy tastes.
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, there's a lot of us out there, and thank God there's still some subversive comics still working.
Thank God,
because it ain't what it used to be.
Man, that's the truth.
Did you guys have to hide Kiss from your parents?
Nah.
No.
No, my mom reluctantly bought me Destroyer, and then it was all my walls were completely covered in Kiss posters. So it was by the time they were going to object, it was way too late.
And you were on to worse bands by that point, because my parents would hear Kiss, and it sounds like an old rock and roll band. There was nothing really metal about their early stuff. My mom would kind of come in and go, "That's them." It sounds like 50s rock almost, certain thing. It swung a lot more than metal stuff until they got the new drummer.
Yeah, my mom would sing, "I wanna rock and roll all night," and I knew she was in a good mood that day. That was like my Kiss story. I didn't even know it was Kiss. I just knew she was singing it.
Well, you're also way younger, so
thanks.
You had the unmasked Kiss to get into.
Recognizing that.
Nobody
mentioning
I love Kiss Unmasked. But you came from a musical family, Raelyn. So I didn't. My parents listened to music, but to this day I don't know how I figured out to get Kiss. It must have been, I probably heard Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day on the radio, but I really don't know. I didn't have older brothers to pass it down to me. Like Florentine's older brothers passed out on all the heavy metal to him. I had nobody, so I just somehow found it.
Yeah, I was the same way. I had an older sister, and she was listening to Tony DeFranco and Sean Cassidy and things like that. So yeah, I had to step out, and it was just some neighbor kids that were kind of young metalheads. So that's where I got into it. But so anyway, after, I guess during MTV, like you said, you were always into comedy, but at what point did you think, hey, maybe I'll give it a shot and try it myself? Did somebody
I thought about it for years. Yeah. And then I was, I used to write stuff in a notebook, and I used to tag along with Florentine to his comedy gigs. And I had booked him on a couple MTV shows, and he was still playing like the back rooms of restaurants and bars and stuff like that.
Yeah, he told us the first one. He told us the first one you went to when you met. I think it was in a strip club or something. He was almost scared to have you out because this big MTV exec guy was going to see him in the. And he's like, I found out he liked strippers and beer, so we were good after that.
Yeah. And he looked, back then he looked like, David Coverdale with a half a chromosome missing, but,
and Jim.
Yeah, I liked his humor, and that was, that strip club gig. I'll remember because, people always go like, who inspired you? And it's like, yeah, of course, Carlin, Cheech and Chong, Dice, Kinnison, all those guys. But the thing that really pushed me over the edge was that gig, because I remember the MC going up, he does 15 minutes. And I mean, there was like silence the entire time. And you could feel the disdain in the room. And the guy got off stage, walked up to the owner, guy handed him a handful of cash, and the guy went into the back room with one of the strippers. I'm like, I could suck that bad.
Right. That's hysterical.
So when it was your first time doing it, did you write out like a 3-minute set?
Yeah. What was your first time?
It was the first
That
time.
was with Florentine also. We were on the way to a gig, and I said, I got all these notes in this notebook. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know if you want any of the stuff. He goes, nah, I write my own stuff, why don't you try it? And I'm like, maybe someday. He goes, listen, this gig, I know the guy there. I could get you a guest spot. You could do like 5 minutes. I'm like, tonight? No, I can't. All right. Yeah, let's do it. Because that's always the stumbling block, right? Is that you always go, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. I knew if I didn't do it then, I might not do it. And it was horrible. It was in a bar in South Jersey. They didn't even know there was a comedy show. You know, they had one spotlight that shined right in my eyes. I'd never been on stage in that way before, you know, and I instantly forgot all my jokes the minute I got up there. I got probably like...
I'm sorry I interrupted you. I'm just curious. Did you just go through that notebook? Like when you're like, okay, I'm going to perform tonight, and you just started going through that notebook and piecing together some shit? Like,
Yeah. I mean, so I had stuff written, you know, I just had never said it out loud before. And the thing that people like the first time you and it's probably the same with the musicians, is like when you first get on stage, you don't know what your style is. You don't know. I don't know if I take the mic out of the stand? Am I a mic in the stand guy? Am I fist? I don't know what I am yet. So now the lights shine in my eyes. I completely forget, because I think it's comedy club and you see the lights and you think you can see everybody in the crowd, which is not true. You know, the comedy clubs are lit so you can only see the first few rows. And first of all, there weren't any rows. You were like 25 feet from angry alcoholics at the bar trying to watch a sporting event. And now they go, oh, we're going to do a comedy show. And it's like, so, you know, I got through and I got probably like 4 mercy laughs. And that was enough to get me, you know, to the next time.
They probably weren't mercy laughs. They were probably.
It is
real.
interesting though. It's the same way with every band I've ever been in. You do your first gig before you're ready. You just have to book one.
Yeah.
So you have that target date and you're like, well, we're already booked and we're committed, so we got to go play it, you know? And I guess it's the same thing. Because if you wait, there's no way to get good. If you wait, you have to go screw up before you get good.
That's the whole career is that. It's like anytime, you know, once I started to get, you know, my legs under me a little bit, you know, people would say, okay, hey, can you do 15 minutes and open for me? I go, oh yeah, sure, no problem. I didn't have 15 minutes. I barely had 5, but you accept it. And then afterwards you go, all right, now what do I do? And you figure it out in between, you know, then. And, you know, I was always good with the crowd. So I figured, you know, I can always kind of, you know, fake it. You know, if I can get through about half of it with material, I can do the other half with crowd work. And then each step of the way, that's what you did. You know, hey, can you feature for me? I'm like, oh, 30 minutes. I don't know how I'm going to do that. I got 20. But, you know, always say yes. And then, you know, my favorite expression is jump and the net will appear.
Oh, I like that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's so nerve wracking in the beginning. I remember he actually told me, he's like, we have to just book a gig and do it. And I'm like, I'm not ready.
Yeah. I've been playing
ready.
in bands a ton before she came along. We started writing together, made some music. And then I was like, well, we got to go play. So,
and then he told me I had to play standing up. And I'd only been playing sitting down, you know, it's songwriter nights.
I'm like,
and
we're going to be kind of a rock band. So, and
I'm like, standing up? I can't play the guitar standing up.
And this poor thing, you've been to the Mercy Lounge in Nashville. So, yeah,
that was there.
That was the first one, but it happened to be, there's the Simmons brothers. There was this metal band called Simmons, and their little brother had a car wreck. So they did a motorcycle.
Is that Paul Simmons?
Yeah.
You know Paulie?
Oh, yeah.
He was our first drummer.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Yeah, love that guy.
And he just drummed with us when we played in San Francisco last month.
He was our last drummer too.
Last drummer too.
Love Paulie. We've known him forever. But anyway, his little brother was in a wreck, so they were doing a benefit. And we played 6 songs, I think. But it just so happened that Deep Purple was in town as well. So Ian Pace and Roger Glover. Yeah, maybe just those 2. But anyway, the word got out for that. So the place was packed. And Raelyn has never played a garage band gig, never played anything,
just
never played a gig.
Yeah, just singer-songwriter shit. You
so
know?
She's standing at the side of the stage down there, and we all get up and slap on the guitars, we're ready to rock. And I look over, and she's just standing there, staring at me. I'm like, "Come on, it's time to go. We gotta go play." And you probably don't remember any of it.
I just remember wanting to throw up in the bathroom. But then once I got up there, I didn't move very much. I just stood very still and sang and played. That's all I could do, was just do that. But yeah, it's so nerve wracking in the beginning.
I had to explain to her. I was like, "Well, your first gig was my first gig was
for Deep Purple.
Yeah, my first gig was in a garage in front of like 7 dudes in a keg. So you know, going right into the fire."
And I really fucked myself because my first songwriter place was the Bluebird. Went down there to do it, and that's like super.
Oh yeah, kind of snooty. And
Yeah,
clicky and...
snooty. This is, the Bluebird, the famous songwriter.
No, I don't know the Bluebird.
You wouldn't. There's no reason for you to go.
There's
ever
no
there.
metal songwriters doing their.
If you like
thing.
if you like mid-tempo country songs sung in a round swapping, then it's the place for you. Just don't talk; they'll shush you.
I'll stick to the Mercy Lounge. Thank you.
There you go. Yeah. So enough about us.
Do you remember the first joke you said on stage?
No, I had some jokes about Woody Allen and Madonna, but I don't remember what they were. They were terrible.
So after that first gig, like, did you just start booking gigs? Did you go around with Florentine? Did you stay in Jersey to kind of work your way up before you went downtown? Get to New York. How did that work out?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I did. I was like, I don't want anybody to know I'm even doing this yet, but I was already addicted after the first time. So I knew I was going to do it, but I didn't want to, jump ahead of the game. And, working at MTV, a lot of the club owners in the city reached out to me because they knew me from scouting other comics in the clubs. And like, anytime you want to work here, no problem. I'll give you spots and all that. And I was like, if I'm going to do this, that's not the way to do it. I got to go out on the road, and, me and Florentine have to drive out to fucking Altoona, Pennsylvania, like 5.5 hours. There's no hotel room. You get paid like $75. It's a shit gig. You got to chase the owner around 2 hours after the show to get paid and drive all the way back. Like, that's how you do it. I can't have it handed to me. And I knew that early on. So I did that. I paid my dues, did all the shit gigs. And, then I went into the city, and then I kind of was like, okay, I already kind of had something going on.
That's probably a smart move too. 'Cause you're not going to make any friends if you jump the line and start getting those gigs in front of people that have been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
Plus, those shit gigs are fun. Once you're past them, to think back on them,
Yeah.
they're the best stories come out of those.
Yeah. Do you remember any kind of crazy stories with you and Jim on the road?
Yes, but none that I want to tell on a podcast.
Okay, that's fine.
But I'll tell you, doing those, now that I obviously I play comedy clubs and everywhere else, but I go out and open for bands now, and people think I'm crazy for doing that. But to me, that really harkens back to those early days of doing those bar gigs. Where like it was a very kind of a rowdy, unruly crowd at the bar gigs, and you really had to come out and hit them hard right away. And if you could get them, you could really score. And that's so I sort of, went back and took that experience and brought it into the present for the last 10 years. So, those skills, that you learned back then, never kind of went away.
How do you deal with hecklers?
It's just a occupational hazard. I mean, every heckler's different. There's no, you can't have a set thing really, because it's a weird thing. Like if you come back too hard at a heckler, like then the audience turns on you. So
yeah,
most of the time I just let them hang themselves. Like I kind of let them go. And wait them out, and then you can feel the tide turning against the person, and then a couple well-placed one-liners, and it's over.
Yeah, because you're funnier and you have a microphone. They don't stand a chance.
Or at least louder, yeah.
That's true. So opening for bands, was that difficult? I just remember back in the day seeing a comedian open for AC/DC here at Municipal Auditorium, and he got roasted because nobody wanted to see a poor. And I just remember thinking, "Oh, you poor bastard!" He could. I don't even know what he was. I don't know if he was funny or not. But as soon as he walked out, the boo started. The few water bottles coming in. So, what did you experience any of that? Because I'm sure you weren't opening for Lionel Richie or people like that.
No, I've been lucky because because we did that metal show for so long. I have some recognition factor with the rock audience. And I try to pick the bands to go out with that, are in my wheelhouse, that are kind of gonna know me. And, I always ask them to put my name in the advertising that says something like, featuring the rock and roll comedy of Don Jamieson, just so people know when they walk in, at least have a fighting chance. They go, oh, there's a comedian on the show. And then you can decide, I don't want to be in there, or I do want to be in there. So, that was that's been good for me. But, yeah, you're right, man. For a long time, it was so not cool to have a comic open. I mean, look, you couldn't have a comic open for grunge bands. I mean, those bands were depressing. You don't want to have a comedian go up, Mr. Happy, before, Nirvana comes out there and, talks about suicide and doing smack. So,
maybe after.
Yeah, right. Afterwards. But yeah, right. You cheer the crowd back up.
Keep them from hanging themselves at the end.
Keep them from killing themselves. Yeah. Oh my God.
But it was really cool before that. Like, Dice and Kinnison and Bobcat Goldthwait, those guys always incorporated rock and roll into their acts. Their stage presence was way more rock and roll. Dice opened for Guns N' Roses at the Rose Bowl, and, Kinnison with the Wild Thing. So for a long time, it was cool. And then totally not. And then, when we were doing that metal show, bands just started asking me, hey, that might be fun to have a comedian come out. And Dee Snider from Twisted Sister was the first one to ask. And I've been doing it like the last 10 years.
That's got to be a fun gig. What's the difference? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of difference and you probably like certain things about each one, but when you're touring by yourself or when you're touring with a rock band, what are the differences there? I know, do you prefer having a gang to roll with, or is it cool to or maybe you're like me, you get enough of one and you want the other and you want that for a while and kind of bounce back and forth. How's that work?
Well, I like being out on the road with the bands. I like being on the bus. I like the camaraderie. I like the brotherhood of being out with a band, traveling from city to city. Okay, cool. We kick Cincinnati's ass tomorrow. We kick Columbus's ass and whatever, and all that kind of great stuff that you miss as a comedian. But I get none of the drama. So when this guy's girlfriend doesn't want him in the band and this guy's mom doesn't want him in, this guy's got herpes flare-ups, I'm out of all that. I'm just the comic. Yeah.
And the difference kind of is, I guess, and you probably do the same, comics will hit a place and stay for 3 days, do Thursday, Friday, Saturday or something, and then move along. So you're not just bouncing, just one-nighters along. So I guess that's sort of a different kind of thing when you're out with bands. It's more of a one-night thing and you move along instead of getting comfortable in a room somewhere. And, by the Saturday night show, you're just crushing it.
Yeah. And then when I go, like I just did 6 weeks with the Dead Daisies. And then I just played this comedy club for the whole weekend in Myrtle Beach, 6 shows. And I immediately knew 5 minutes into the first show that I was way too aggressive on stage. Like I literally had to say to myself, relax, Don. These are people here for a comedy show. They're seated. They're having a reasonable amount of drinks, So I had to, I had to take it down a notch and breathe. But because, the rock shows are much more intense. And I have a whole separate act that I do for the rock crowd than my nightclub act in the regular comedy clubs or theaters. So then that was another thing, is like trying to, oh shit, what do I do in the comedy clubs again?
Yes, you must write a lot.
Try, yeah.
Still in the notebooks? You still writing stuff out like you mentioned earlier on?
I write on these cards, like these little note cards. Huh. Like I'm just writing a joke about the word cunt right now, you could say. But I have I have stacks of these things like everywhere, these cards. And I like writing stuff out by hand because I feel like it's more personal. I don't know how you guys write music, but if I don't write it by hand, it doesn't stay in my, like if I write on my computer, I don't remember it.
Well, you know why they call it a cunt, don't you?
I was going to do it.
Do it at the same time.
All right.
It's the sound.
I'll set it up. You give them the punchline. You know why they call it a cunt, don't you?
It's the sound it makes when you kick it.
It's one of my favorite street jokes ever. I don't know.
We're canceled. Yeah, I always write everything out. I mean, to-do lists, everything has to be written out. And I think it helps you remember when you write it down.
Yeah. And I've been doing that for years and years. And I've had times where like I've left the notes in the back of the room and went up on stage. And then like I came off and like the busboy threw them all in the bin and like tossed them. And I'm like, oh Christ, he just threw my whole act out. But so I try to keep track of where my cards are at all times.
So how did that metal show come about? I guess you and Jim were friends before that. How'd you meet Eddie Trunk and get that whole thing rolling?
Yeah, so Jim and I at this point have been touring for years together, and we used to listen to Eddie's radio show in the car, and we were just like, I hope we got to meet this guy someday. He's just like us. We met him at an Ozfest, started asking us to come up onto a show and hang out. And next thing you know, he's like, I'm hosting over on VH1 Classic, and they're looking for ideas for shows. So we got together and came up with some ideas. We didn't know it was going to be that metal show. We knew we were going to want to do a rock thing together. And we went in and pitched it. And it was one of those things where, like, as comics, like Florentine and I had done like a dozen pilots before that, and taken a million meetings with people, and nothing ever came of it. That any pilot I did never got picked up. And it's just like, who gives a shit? Let's just go, let's get a free lunch out of VH1, and then we'll never hear from them again. So we went up there in like camo shorts and concert shirts, so not professional at all, and we spent the whole meeting busting Eddie's balls.
Like you did.
Because they're just like, we might as well have fun, while we're in the meeting. And it turns out that's what they actually liked about us. It was the chemistry between the three of us, that we were so loose and that we had this cool chemistry between us, because they're like, we don't really know hard rock and metal like you guys do, so we'll leave that to you, but we like the dynamic with you guys. So, sometimes when you totally do the wrong thing, it turns out right.
So was it hard early on to get guests, or did like Eddie knows a lot of those guys, or maybe you guys had met? Like how hard was it initially to get people on?
Yeah, I think at the beginning, if it wasn't for Eddie's contacts, we probably wouldn't have gotten through the first 2 seasons. But yeah, it was amazing. Our first season, we had Rush on and Yngwie Malmsteen and Lita Ford and a bunch of, really good guests. So thank God, for Eddie, his experience in radio all those years, because Jim and I did, we knew a few people, because, some of the rock world had caught on to some of the prank CDs that, Jim and I do together, and they used to pass them around, but we didn't know people like Eddie knew people.
Yeah, it's crazy. And must have been did your background at MTV help or hurt or do anything? Or was it just you kind of knew how that shit worked once you got rolling? Or was that just whatever? I used to do that. That's my old gig.
No, it helped me, but the network hated it, but it helps me a lot because I was I knew how to put TV shows together. I knew how to hit my mark. I knew all the stuff when I stepped in front of the camera. I knew already all the behind the scenes stuff. So it helped a lot. But then the problem was, I would super critique all the cuts of the show and stuff, to the point where, the three of us demanded that we make notes on the rough cuts of the shows, because, definitely in the early days, the show did not look very good. It was public access at its finest. So, but because I kind of knew, how to edit a show, they let me have my 2 cents, much to the chagrin of my producer.
I could imagine this motherfucker is going to be in the office every show telling us what to cut. Plus, you probably knew when they were bullshitting you too, because you'd been on the other side of that too. And when they start giving that corporate speak, you probably could see right through all of that stuff.
Yeah, the three of us did. And listen, I'm great. We're grateful, obviously, for the opportunity, and we always stood united on stuff. If we had a disagreement, we would stand as the three of us going, no, we don't want to do this, or yes, we want to do that. So that helped. So that made it a good working relationship. But for the most part, they kind of let us do our thing.
It seems like it, because that was an underrepresented. There wasn't a lot of people having these bands on their shows, or anybody having these bands. That's what got me. I was like, holy shit. And then some of the obscure people that you remember from back in the day would pop on, and you kind of get sucked in. You got Rush and all that, but you also got some of the obscure LA bands and things like that. And it was something that there's a huge crowd for that stuff, as evidenced by all these metal festivals that half of our bands are 50-year-olds,
Yeah. Well, I was just in Pigeon Forge, and Monsters on the Mountain down there, which is part of the Monsters of Rock cruise. And so it's particularly the 80s genre, but then there's other cruises. There's a Kiss cruise, there's the Rock and Wrestling cruise with Jericho, there's Shiprocked, which is a heavier band. So yeah, this stuff is it's still out there, it's still alive. So hopefully someday we do the show again.
Yeah. Are you paying attention to new bands that are are there new metal bands putting music out? New bands?
Oh yeah.
Metal out? I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not a metalhead, but I'm just curious. What new metal bands do you like? Are there new ones?
Well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to just be metal. I mean, there's definitely a lot of young hard rock bands that are coming out that are great, like Crowbot and, Rival Sons and The Cruel Knives. And there's King, Kyng. I mean, there's a million young bands that are flooding the market now, but obviously the last 18 months, they really haven't had Greta Van Fleet kind of got in under the wire there. But a lot of bands lost momentum, but yeah, there's the Pretty Reckless, Lizzie Hale's been kicking ass now for a while. So there's a good scene.
Yeah. What happened in the last 18 months?
I don't want to talk about it.
Did I miss something?
Because I was doing Zoom shows and drive-in shows.
Really?
Oh, how were the Zoom shows? We did a live stream, and I was like, I don't want to ever do this again. It's like practice that you don't get paid for,
And you can't mess up.
Everybody's watching you practice. It was horrible.
No, I got paid for it, but I didn't say I liked it, but it was something.
Yeah, I guess to try and keep your chops, but I can't imagine trying to do, like, it seems like comedy more than music. You rely on feedback. I mean, that's half of the gig, like not people talking to you, but just you can feel a vibe coming off whatever. Musicians can get into it yourself and just get sucked into the song, but I can't imagine you just lean back and are so into the joke that you get lost in yourself, and you don't recognize an audience out there.
My jokes are very transcendental. I get going to a Zen state. Especially the penis jokes, I really get very kind of spiritual, very Eckhart Tolle,
Yeah.
It's like the dick joke, the Tao of the dick jokes. You know what I mean? It's very enlightening. I vibrate at a higher dick joke level than a lot of people do.
But only on Zoom. Only
Correct.
on Zoom shows.
It's too powerful live.
So how are the drive shows?
Oh, horrible. I mean, they're beeping the horn.
Yeah.
That instead of laughter, that's the ones that kill you. It's like, what if this joke doesn't get a beep?
Yeah, you can't chuckle. You're either the horn is either laughing out loud or not. There's not a chuckle. There's no
What about
dynamics.
blinking
with
the
horn.
headlights? They should blink headlights, maybe.
And I did. I played out in the middle of a farm one time. I played someone's backyard birthday party. It all got me through, man. That's all I could say. So, and then Jersey, we were good here. We opened back up 25% back in last September. So I've been working, steady for the last, over a year, which has been good.
Yeah, we got out a little bit, Georgia, Florida. During the middle of it, they were still having bands. And
It doesn't exist. The COVID doesn't exist in Florida.
But the positive thing about COVID is you could go sell out a lot easier when you played a club at 25% capacity. You could just throw up the Ellis. Just sold out, man. Can't believe it.
Every comic sold out during COVID. Sold out my home club again. 38 tickets.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay, so I want to ask you something after we stop recording. But I need to ask you this before we stop.
Yes, I'm single. Oh, sorry.
When's the first time you remember? What's the first time you remember hearing about my grandpa? What's your own personal Willie Nelson story?
Wow, that's a good one. Probably from my parents' record collection. They were sort of they were kind of all over the place with music. Like I remember the one record they always played was the Bee Gees Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. But then they had Willie albums, they had Johnny albums, which were really the only two country acts that kind of translated for me into through this whole journey of being a rocker and a metalhead and stuff, and still to this day. Because again, I think it's the same spirit. That's that outlaw spirit. It's that renegade spirit. It's something, subversive. With the old school country. So those records those two particular artists, your grandfather and Johnny, were the ones that stuck with me the most. But yeah, that's probably where it came from, and my dad gave me a bunch, because I've been collecting vinyl again, heavy for the last 10 years. And my dad gave me 3 boxes of vinyl, and there was a bunch of Willie and Johnny in there. So I still have that stuff, and I think it's great.
Nice. I got to get one in before we get out here. Because Raelyn hates football. I like football. Didn't you win an Emmy like you and for the was it Inside the NFL that you guys were doing?
Yes, Florentine and I, two idiots from New Jersey with Emmys. Yep.
How did that come about? Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, that's good. It got me a backyard birthday party during COVID times. That's how much prestige an Emmy has. But it's we did sports themed sketches for Inside the NFL when it was on HBO, and it was cool. It was, we did a lot of edgy stuff. Some of the people there didn't like it as much as others, but Jim's hero is Dan Marino, and he loved the stuff we were doing, and even Bob Costas, who you'd think he's like this real straight-laced conservative guy. That guy's sense of humor is off the charts, man. He loved the evil stuff. So we never thought anything of it. We got invited to go to the Emmys, and we were sitting there, and we were just goofing, like that basketball player Manute Bol.
Oh yeah,
was like 8'9", like he was there.
Pounds.
And his legs went, because his legs are so long, they went all the way across the aisle into like our aisle. So like me and Jim are just goofing on Manute Bol's legs, and we missed the announcement that we had won. And we're racing out of there because we wanted to go see a metal band playing in Jersey. And as on the way out, there was a woman giving out those gift bags they always give away at the Emmys and stuff. And then she walked away. So like now I'm throwing gift bags out to Florentine, and we're trying to get as many as we can before the girl comes back. And we're standing there holding gift bags. And like all of a sudden Bob Costas walks around the corner. He goes, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" We're like, "Oh, nothing." He goes, "What happened? You missed the announcement." We're like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "We won Emmys." And we're like, "We did?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, we got to get out of here, Bob. We're going to see Wednesday 13 in Jersey."
That's great.
Who's
We're
Bob
the real
Costas?
winners here. Look at all these gift bags.
Who's Bob Costas?
Oh my God. We'll talk after this.
Well, but what if a listener doesn't know who Bob Costas is?
He's the voice of sports for the last 50 years. But other than that, nobody.
Okay. Oh yeah,
I can understand. There's probably a whole
now.
lot of people out there that don't know who Bob Costas
I
is.
bet they have vaginas. Those people who don't
Bob
know.
Costas has a vagina?
It sounds like it.
Anyway.
That wasn't what I was saying, but I rolled with
He
it.
he may have transitioned. I don't know, but
You can't say transitioned.
You can't say that
No,
anymore?
I'm kidding. You can. It's fine.
He was part of the Netflix. He was part of the Netflix.
I have a transistor radio.
You, sir, are canceled.
You, sir, no more. Okay.
Have you seen my career? I'm uncancelable.
That should be your special. Uncancelable.
Oh, I've got one.
I know.
I don't know.
And that's why I like playing for the rock crowd. I mean, I love doing the comedy clubs. That's where I've always thrived. But I love playing in front of the rock crowds because they're not PC at all, and you get away with a lot more in front of the rockers.
And I'm glad there's still people like you out there doing it, because I think the market is huge for it. I believe that most people now are thirsty for that stuff because it's been the other way for so long.
Thirsty means horny now. You can't use that for that.
Anyway.
He's old. He doesn't know these things.
Well, I just listen. I'm lucky. I kind of have my crowd, so they expect a certain thing from me. But that's not to say I haven't developed over the years either. Like my last album that I did, Denim and Laughter. I did this material in front of rock crowds. I did in front of regular comedy club crowds on the road, and I did this material in front of the New York City clubs downtown, where it was all NYU students, all under the age of 25. So, I battle test the material, and if I can get 21-year-olds to laugh at Trump jokes, then I know these are good jokes.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is coming out Wednesday. You got any gigs coming up you want to pimp to let the people know?
I'm going to be down in Nashville.
When?
December 3rd and 4th. So I was down there for the Rockin' Pod thing.
Oh, yeah.
And me and my buddy Craig Gass and my friend Courtney Cronin-Dold, we did this little wine bar called Wine Down, which is a cool little spot. And I have a corporate gig down there, but we had so much fun playing that little room that I'm going to come down and do that. But I'm also going to play at the Wine Down with my buddy Mark Riccadonna, and we'll be there December 3rd and 4th. So if people want to come out and see us in an extremely intimate setting, I'm working on Zany's dates. I had some before the COVID, then they got rebooked, and so we'll do them in the new year. But between now and then, we'll be back down at Wind Down, which, like I said, is a lot of fun. It's a really cool place. The couple that owns it are awesome. They embrace the hardcore comedy, and it's a good spot. So that's where we'll be.
Sweet, we'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I'll be there.
I've got another question. Now, we don't have to keep this in, but and I don't know if it's the same thing you were talking about.
I think it might be. I don't know.
About some of our friends doing.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Just so you know, we're gonna edit this out. Okay.
So you can speak freely.
So you can just speak freely. Some of our friends who are in the rock and roll residency, we heard that you were at this event with them and that they did a little try at their own stand-up comedy, and we were just curious if you laughed at anything they said.
Who was the best?
Oh God,
Funny?
Those guys. I adore those guys. You've probably known.
Oh, we do too.
You probably know.
They're good dudes. Yeah.
We just strictly want to know about their comedy skills.
Just the comedies, because we were playing a gig, we didn't make it. So from someone, and I promise you, this isn't going to be aired. We're not.
Yeah, if it's good, we can put it out. But if you want to share,
no, you can air this, because I got to tell you. So we helped them with their material and stuff. That was kind of the premise is that they would write their stuff, but then we would help punch it up and help structure it, which is what we did. But honestly, the guys really did it mostly on their own, and they were fucking great.
Yeah?
They killed. All of them killed.
Okay.
And then I had to go on after them, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm gonna have a hard time following three guys who just did stand up for the first time, because the crowd loved them, and they were really, really good. And we had such a fun night there at, we did the High Watt in the Mercy Lounge, and it really was a fantastic night.
So
that makes me so happy and so sad.
Hold on a second. Did
Me too.
You said you punched them up, but did they go out and do it? Then you punch them up, they come back out and redo it, or y'all punch?
No. They sent us the material, and then we all looked at it and said, oh, maybe structure it this way, or here's another punchline for this joke, or maybe try doing it this way, and then sent it back to them. But no, when they went out on stage and did it, they were on their own.
Man, see, I'm thrilled that they did good, and I'm also sad that I can't give them shit for doing badly.
Terribly. Yeah,
because that's always fun.
But wait a minute, that first thing that was sent to you, it wasn't fabulous, though? It wasn't 100%. You said you had.
No, no, honestly, they all got. I knew it, because I'm the one that suggested them. I'm like, these guys all have a great sensibility for comedy, and they're all huge comedy fans, and they're all funny guys, which doesn't always translate, right? But I know they have the sensibility for it. So no. I mean, honestly, it was mostly them. It was just a little, turn of the screwdriver here, a little, little twist and turn there. But other than that, they did it.
Well, this is extremely disappointing, Don.
I think what Raelyn's getting at is, what if she sent you some of her material and you could judge it against their material?
Let's do it.
All right, I'll send you my 5 minutes.
Why don't you come? Yeah, send me your 5 minutes. I'll punch it up, and then you come to Wind Down and do a set.
You heard it here first.
Oh my God, my heart just dropped.
Raelyn Nelson's comedy debut really is going to be at Wind Down in December.
Okay.
I'm serious.
All right. Okay.
Do you really have material?
Will you play some guitar on our next single or the single after that?
I will.
Okay.
Well, we got a
there
deal.
we go. All right.
Perfect.
Thanks for doing this with us, Don. I'll see you December 3rd at the Wind Down. 4th.
Absolutely. This was so much fun. Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, man. Thanks for doing this. It's good to meet you, brother.
Talk to you later.
All right, man.
Bye.
Don Jamieson is my favorite comedian.
I love that guy. Yeah. Metal to the core, my kind of guy.
We had a blast.
Oh, we did. Anyway, rate, review.
You could write to us.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. You know what we're supposed
Subscribe.
to do. All that stuff.
And go check out our Spin article.
There you go. Enjoy your groceries.
Don't be an asshole.
I know your mama's name.
Be free, Britney, y'all.